Now, staying with the back-to-school story and its various components, the Competition Commission is urging parents to familiarise themselves with the guidelines on uniforms to protect themselves and get affordable prices. Competition Commission Deputy Commissioner Hardin Ratshisusu joins us now for further details. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Deputy Commissioner. Maybe start with that very concept on the guidelines that parents should be looking out for as they do their last-minute shopping for school uniforms.
Good afternoon, Ropiwa and the eNCA viewers. What's very, very important to note here for our consumers, particularly those parents that are buying school uniform, is that it is no longer permissible for schools to prescribe where school uniform should be procured from. So what that means is that that practice of having exclusivity with specific schools, school uniform suppliers, is no longer allowed. Where that happens, it has to be for a short period, but it has to be for limited items. So many other items have to be as generic as possible. I think we have accepted that items such as blazers can be unique to a specific school, but items such as shirts, if it's a white shirt, it has to be a white shirt, not shirts with different shades that are difficult to find in many other outlets.
Has this change in the supplier-school relationship that you've just described for us had an impact, a positive impact on the pricing of school items or school items of clothing for young people heading to school? Has there been a notable difference that you all as a commission have seen?
What we did as the commission last year, we did a survey just to assess the familiarity of the guidelines, across schools. And it seems the majority of the schools are familiar with this guideline. What we have also observed is that there is now more scope for parents to buy and procure uniform from many other multiple sources. And how we have gauged this is that we have seen a reduction in the number of complaints that we have been receiving as the commission, particularly on the costs. But what we would also be doing, and it is something that we have to conduct a detailed study here on the impact of these interventions on prices, because there may be items where prices are stabilizing, some prices reducing, but there could be areas where there could still be opportunistic pricing. So we need a detailed assessment for this.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that, I wonder, could that opportunistic pricing come about in private schools, for example, where some parents have complained that private schools are still having them buy exclusively from the school or their suppliers. So these guidelines that you so eloquently described to us in the beginning of our conversation, do they fall across the board, or is it just for public school institutions?
These apply across the board. And interestingly, with private schools, we reached a settlement agreements with those private schools, the major ones, Curo, the Redham schools, and many other schools, that they will do away with the practice of exclusivity. So what that means is that they can have a store in their school that is quite permissible, but they should not force parents to only procure from that specific school. How is that made possible? Is by ensuring that uniform is as generic as possible. As I've given an example, if you need a white shirt, in the past, you had different shades of white shirts, which even if you could try source it from other places, you will never find that shirt. So I think the practice that we are quite concerned about is the exclusivity and these unwarranted, unique features that schools prescribe in their uniform.
Have there been any consequences to those schools that you have found have not complied with the guidelines that you have introduced in terms of perhaps them paying fines or any other penalty imposed? Have there been those instances, Deputy Commissioner?
So as I've mentioned, we were quite ready to prosecute the major private schools. And at that point, they all agreed to a settlement with us, which was made an order of the competition tribunal. It's a binding order that they will do away with those practices. Mm-hmm. And as I speak to you now, our team is on the ground visiting a number of schools. And interestingly, each time we visit a school where there is a concern, the moment we see a principal, they say, well, they either were not aware of the guideline or that these practices will stop immediately. So we have not really found a school that is resistant to these kinds of interventions. Hence, we have not really prosecuted one, right through to the tribunal. Each time we raise these issues, we are getting a lot of cooperation from schools, and we encourage schools to cooperate, to apply these guidelines to ensure that school uniform is accessible.
Thank you very much for that update and for clarity around those guidelines. That is Competition Commission Deputy Commissioner Hardin Ratshisusu joining us this afternoon to give us an update on the pricing of school uniforms, and that encouragingly complaints have since decreased since those guidelines were amended to suit parents better.